Hi everybody, Lars here back again. Today I'd like to introduce you to Joringels, which is a Python-based remote function or remote procedure call tool available for Python 3.9 and above. Joringels allows you to convert any of your Python standalone packages into fully functional standalone web services. And on top of that, Joringels enables you to integrate all of your Joringels generated web services into one single web service cluster. And within that cluster, Joringels now makes all its functionalities available to every single web service as if they would be run on the same platform. So in a way, it's similar to Google RPC or even Kubernetes, although it's quite limited comparatively in its functionalities, and currently it's restricted to only serving Python. Please also note that Joringels is in alpha currently, so it's far away from being a fully fledged application that you can just download, install, and then run out of the box. Instead, you might have to invest some work to adjust it to your particular needs. But with that out of the way, I hope you still download and try it and extend it and hopefully even join a community that thrives to make Joringels better and available to everyone. So if you're still with me, let me give you a short introduction into Joringels functionalities. To that, I open a terminal and I have Joringels installed on my system. In order to get there, I just go into the folder and activate the environment, and I have a shortcut to do that. So now since I'm in the environment now, I can immediately run the first command, yo, which is the shorthand for Joringels, and then info. And info is a little tool that helps you to set up Joringels properly. It tells you about all the environment variables that you have to set, and it tells you about the DataSafe that you have to create. And you find more information on how to set these up in the documentation. In order to run this, it is critical that you get this DataSafe file set up in the correct way. And I can show you one. If I clear this, I still should have the path here. So you see there's one in Joringels test data #safe1.yml. .yml shows you that it is decrypted, and if I look into this, now these are all made up values, but if you look at them you see that there's a lot of entries in here, and it's kind of interesting to know how they came together. They all came from my KeePass source, which I'm using to store these things, and I have one test KeePass source set up here, as you can see. Now it uses these folder here called DataSafes and another folder called products, and it has a number of entries that simply belong to that DataSafe. For example, I have physical machines that I want to log into. I have databases that I might want to access. And if I go into one of in this DataSafe 1, for example, I can see that there is a file attached to it called safe params. And if I open that up and pull it here into the screen, then you see that there's a number of entries in there that you will find again back here. So Heimdall Server, Joringels Server, AWS Postgres, just remember these for a second, and go into physical machines. So you see Heimdall Server, Joringels Server, and in databases you have AWS Postgres. So the DataSafe uses its attached file to reference all the secrets that the DataSafe needs to be run. And if you go over to the file here, you find that DataSafe 1 and you find the attached file with the entries I just mentioned. And what's very important is that KDBX source that is part of Joringels extracted now all the secrets that were listed here as entries. For example, AWS Postgres is what you see here. Heimdall Server is what you see here. Joringels Server is what you see here. Now this is the first part of that file. There's a second part which belongs to this product section here. And as you can see, there is in this product section, there is one product I created called Heimdall. And there is a testing cluster that belongs to that product. If I open that up again, I find classic information, username, password, but I also find an advanced tab that contains cluster params. And if I open those up and pull them in here, what you see is basically, some of you might already recognize what that is. It's basically a Docker Compose file, except for this section down here. Now the section down here is two specialties. Number one, where the image and the build parameters are located, there's also these indices 1 and 2, and they represent APIs that I can use on that Heimdall package, and that Joringels can call when I later run the call command. Now down here you have additional parameter, for example allowed clients, the DataSafe name. And again, if I close this down and go into the file here, you see that there is this testing cluster entry, and it has the cluster params, and it contains exactly the file that I just showed you, with these app params that you see here, but also with the Docker Compose file that I just showed to you. Now this is how this file is composed, and Joringels is kind of biased to get this kind of structure, so make sure you get this before you start running the system. Now let me clear that again, and then do my first real Joringels command, which is yo fetch. And fetch allows me to acquire some secrets. I define the entry that I want to have, and I give it a name, for example, cluster params. And I have to know what these params are named like, otherwise I can't access them. So what Joringels does here, it opens the DataSafe and extracts these information from the DataSafe. Now you might ask why I'm not doing that directly using cat, but if I cat the file that I was talking about, and let me first do AO info again, because this is the path where my secrets reside, and if I do a cat now, and I want to see the digiserver.json file, you see that it's encrypted. And I need Joringels to basically view the decrypted data. Now, in order to perform an API call using Joringels, I have to run it as a server. Always forget the command, I just cut the pip file. And you can see down here I have a script, and it starts with yo serve -n, then the name of the datasafe I want to serve. Connector is the application that I want to serve, and testing is the cluster which I want to assign this web service to. So I copy this command here, and I paste it in. Make sure -rt stays in, because otherwise your datasafe will be deleted, and -t here will run the unit test before the server is actually upped. Now I will remove that variable here and say digiserver, because this is what I will use, and press enter. And as you can see now, the serve command will serve the Joringels application. Now how can I access the data? In order to do that, I just go over to the second terminal window here, and I enter another application that I have. I have a shortcut for that too, which is called OR Mailer, and as the name suggests, that is a mail service. And I can now say yo fetch, and because this application here ran the unit tests, I can say -e log unit test, and I have to specify an IP address, which in this case is just localhost. And if I run that, you see that the Joringels server here responds with return code 200, and it returns the test results from that launch test or that server up test that has been performed here. Now there's another way how I can run Joringels as a server. Let me interrupt the first server here. And this is kind of an Easter egg. What I can do, in fact, is I can say yo dockerize, and then --hard, that will build a new Docker container called Joringels, and it will use the Ubuntu base image. And I can say -y, which will automatically up the container or run the container. And make sure Docker is running, otherwise this wouldn't work. And if I press enter now, and it will ask me to confirm the parameters, and if I press yes here and confirm, then it will install the container, and I will fast forward from here. Now you see it's done. I have a Docker container up and running. This took me about 4 to 5 minutes. Also, Windows Defender kicked in to ruin my day, but I had to rerun it, and second time was a charm. So I can now copy that docker exec command that I have here, just paste it in and press enter, and it will bring me into the container directly to my Joringels environment. So if I clear this now, you can see that Joringels is already activated, and I can now type yoinfo again. And you see there is like one variable not set up, which is the secrets path. But since I'm not trying to extract any secrets here on the site, I can just ignore this error. And I can instead use the pipenv script that I have in my pip file, and I can run this by typing pipenv run your serve. And it will now run the server here in that Docker container. And I can access this on I can access that on the other side by just, doing a fetch localhost again. And as you can see now, it's going into the Docker container and it's returning the test results. Please note right here it shows 0 tests, and this is just because the Docker container only installs Joringels via the pip file. It doesn't contain any of the necessary files to run a proper test in here. This is why we also see these kind of warning messages here. But that's not relevant. What I can still do is, for example, get my CL params. And if I type that, you can see that the CL params are returned, and they are now coming from that Docker container. Now that's all nice and pretty, but what if I want to actually do something useful with it instead of just acquiring parameters? For example, I can run this OR mailer that I have here using the same Joringels installation. And I do this by typing pipenv. I have the same script in here, so I can say pipenv run serve. And it will now serve OR mailer as an application within this local host here. Now that I have both as servers, I can open up a third terminal, and this one I will just activate in here. There's another installation of Joringels in this Python venvs environment here. So what I can do now is I can say again, yo fetch minus ECL params and minus IP local host, but this time I want to use the port 7007, which I happen to know is this mailer server here. So if I run this, then you see now that it's serving me these parameters from this server here. Now again, this is just acquiring parameters. What if I want to send an email, for example? And to do this, I have the yo call command. I need to add an API flag, so --API, and this one is a integer. I can't just give it a command, and Joringels will not execute that for security reasons. What it expects is a preloaded API that I will execute, and I can address that by typing an integer value. And in this case, I know that sending an email is API with the index 0. Now, I also have to provide it a service that I want to use. So I have two services here. The one is called OR mailer. This one is called Joringels. Now I want to send an email, so I have to connect to the mailer service. So I will say -con OR mailer. And of course, it also needs a payload. It needs to know what kind of email I want to send. And this one I will copy. And you can see this is basically an email that has a recipient information, it has a subject, and it has a text. And if I now press enter, you can see that a lot of things happening here. And you can see that the Gmail v1 service was created successfully. So I hope that an email has been sent. Now let me check my emails. And I can go to my emails here. And as you see here, there is an email. Hello world, this is a test mail from WhileAI2. And that's basically the text that we have sent here. So the email went through perfectly. And this, even though those two instances of Joringels, they run in completely different environment. This one here runs on my local host machine. This one runs inside a Docker container. So I hope you found this helpful and interesting. Download and use Joringels, contribute, and stay free.